how can you win a game when you continuously get pestered by the most powerful civilization in the game, who not only ruined your primary plans, but continues to use their more powerful military, more advanced technology, and larger economy with just one goal in mind: to make you lose? Well, in this game of Civilization 6, the goal is to do just that and win on the hardest difficulty despite these impossible circumstances. And to do that, we're going to be playing as Julius Caesar, one of the best civs in Civilization 6, possessing an incredible unique unit and even stronger ability that fundamentally breaks the game. But breaking the game is nothing compared to not only one of the strongest civs in the game, but the strongest civ the Deity AI can use, since unlike Babylon or Byzantium, there is no setup or preparation required to make this leader consistently run away with the game like they did today. So despite this civ acting as my primary enemy, can I find a way to win this game? This goal is made a lot easier with our rather strong start, but we can't sit around and build up. We are Rome after all, and almost every advantage we have comes in the early game. And to make use of that window, we begin by building 3 warriors that will be used to make the most of Caesar's unique ability, because these warriors upgrade into legions. But before we get into that, there's a more important mission we need these warriors for. Julius's unique ability gives you 330 gold every time you pillage a barb camp or capture a city. And with the Barbarian Clan's game mode, you can repeat this interaction every 8 turns, but this isn't free gold, because every time you pillage, a new unit spawns and kicks you out, putting you at a disadvantage, and that is where the 5 strength and uncapped experience against barbarians comes in, ensuring we will never have to worry about losing these units while we make use of this infinite gold glitch. Gold that will be used to buy settlers and upgrade our warriors. But these upgrades require iron, and to get that, we have to kill 3 barbarians and work an iron mine to obtain these techs as fast as we can. And so our first warriors get to discovering these camps, obtaining a builder on the way that will be used to work iron when we discover it, while also discovering our first potential victim, Australia. But it was the barb camps that we were looking for, and we had found 3, eliminating the defending units with ease before securing 990 total gold before working to repeat the process in the next 8 turns. What might be an even bigger advantage is that with 3 barbs killed, we obtained bronze working, revealing what is apparently the only source of iron on the map. Our free builder gets to working immediately, not only boosting iron working, but also beginning to stockpile the iron we need for those legions. And to prepare for this inevitable upgrade, we forward settle our second city right up to our first victim, Australia's borders, to act as a base of operations our warriors from every corner of the globe can move towards after we're done taxing the barbarians, of course. But there are still 10 turns until we actually get the legion, which is just enough time to build an encampment to get a great general to further boost the strongest unit in the classical era. But while I placed that district, I realized that Australia had flipped the script and forward settled us. But the city's going to flip soon, so our plans to move all our units north are unchanged. And after arriving, we upgrade our warriors into the Roman unique unit, the Legion. Their unique ability gives them 1 build charge to repair tiles, chop forests, or build a fort for extra defense. But what makes the Legion so strong is their extra combat strength that, when combined with the Great General, makes them 10 combat strength stronger than the strongest unit Australia can possibly hope to build. But that isn't the end of our advantages, as with the classical era coming up, I smell an opportunity. Buying a Great General with gold from the barb camps, and while expensive, was used to give us a golden age and more loyalty to keep any cities we capture in check. But despite our golden age, the disloyal city rebels to the Congo. But it's right beside— never mind, despite that setback, it was the Australian mainland that was the real prize in this war, as we were finally ready to declare on our future vassal. With our great general and their units unprepared for a war, we nearly one-shot them with our incredible combat strength. And despite trying to escape with their lives, the Great General's additional move speed to all units means these almost dead soldiers can't get away, as we eliminate their military in record time. But the first of our problems happens when a barb camp spawns in the west that requires one of our 4 legions to deal with. as the rest of our forces converge on the Australian frontier. The issue arises when they build their chariot, the strongest unit in the ancient era that makes their city a lot harder to capture. Despite that, there are enough farmlands to pillage for health that we eventually take the first city without too much trouble. And with the power of the Golden Age, we ensure that this newly conquered city will stay loyal to us for now. But the chariot garrison slowed us down enough that the Australians had enough time to prepare a defense for their capital, the one city we need to call this war a success. And with their walls coming in, we go oligarchy for the 4 extra combat strength to our already stupidly powerful legions. And with all this damage, we obliterate their capital in the first turn, but it would all soon take a turn for the worst as I realized that suddenly, one of my legions lost most of its health. And that is when the delayed hurricane rolled through, threatening to completely eliminate my army, forcing a retreat, and leaving just a single healthy legion, which is nowhere near enough to take the city. But with all the gold we stockpiled from capturing the previous city, I can easily afford another, but it would take time to get to the front lines. Time Australia used to finish their walls. But despite a whole other health bar we needed to punch through, our legions, with aid from the battering ram we prepared beforehand, was more than enough to tear down the walls, leaving nothing to stand between us and the conquest of Australia's capital, marking the end of Australia, who didn't have the production to resist anymore and were eventually integrated into the Roman Empire, putting us in position to win this game, as long as we properly build up our empire. But the civ that had previously stolen our rightful city was not just going to wait for us to overtake her massive yields, as the Congo launched an emergency, hoping to take us while we were unprepared. And the key word is emergency, which reduces our combat strength by 5. But whether reduced by 5 or 500, the main issue is our forces are stuck up north and will take too long to get down south. But for the first time ever, I was happy to see a barb camp spawn in a bullshit location, since we bought a man-at-arms from them to defend against the Congo's inevitable onslaught. But that man-at-arms first had to deal with the barb camp he came from, and the Congo wasn't going to wait for him. Thankfully, we managed to get one of our legions into position, and with all the insane boosts he was gathering, we were able to hold off her more advanced army from behind the river. This gave us enough time to reposition our forces, meaning that other cities didn't have to contribute to the defense effort and could instead build settlers, builders, and districts we need to obtain every great person to win this game. But despite stymieing her advance, the Congo wasn't alone. She had the help of Mogadishu, and while their units were weak, with only the catapult really being a problem, that was all a trap, keeping my guard down while slowly whittling down one of my best cities until a man-at-arms arrives. This was bad, as the city-state going from ancient to medieval era meant that our city was a few turns away from being captured. And while the man-at-arms began going to work, we no longer had the decisive advantage our legions once possessed. We can't lose this city and so go all in by buying a second man-at-arms, but even that might not be enough, because the next turn with the catapult and man-at-arms combo, the city is put into the red, and just one turn away from being eliminated, which is when I used everything at my disposal. Great General, Battle Cry, and Oligarchy were used to two-shot their man-at-arms threatening the city. But this isn't the end, because the next turn the catapult still dealt damage while a second man-at-arms was on their way. But with him being far away, we focus on the catapult. But again, there is another right after that. Even after almost eliminating it, the catapult took out half of my walls on its way out, leaving the city practically open to being captured. And after eliminating more units than I can count, they finally got one through. And after getting a hit off with a catapult and then man-at-arms, the city barely stands strong as the emergency ends the next turn. And with no lost cities on our side, we are finally able to pay half our economy to the Congo to make peace. And while the price of peace was expensive, we could now finally focus on picking up the pieces to get our long-desired science victory. But of course, the strongest city you can ever face in this game wasn't going to take the L lying down. And after believing she couldn't possibly think about going in again, my subsidization of her economy had ended, a subsidy she used to get the most advanced units in the world that she was going to use to redeem her previous failure. But unlike the last time, I wasn't alone. Allying with the Mayans and a military alliance with Ethiopia. So while she was dealing with 2 more fronts than last time, she was also dealing with the 10 combat strength swing, as I was now the one with the 5 combat strength advantage, and I used it well, using our line infantry as the meat shields, while our boats launched their cannons at the targets, which proved impenetrable to her cavalry-based army. But the cavalry-based army did give her one advantage, one she would use to the fullest, scattering her forces as she ran around ruining my economy by pillaging tiles, traders, greedily obtaining as many yields as her grubby little hands could grab. And this all happened because of my insistence on building those settlers, builders, and districts I was talking about. And the worst thing about this was the fact that while she would never take any of my cities, those traders were critical to use the communism collectivism policy card to build my expensive space parts before the AI could, and so I had to do something, and fast. But my first plans changed when I realized that my allies made peace the minute they could, leaving me alone and without my combat strength buff to finish off the Congo. And it was at this point that I had had enough. I was not only going to stop her from ruining my game, I was going to ruin hers. While she kept pillaging my empire, I stopped chasing her and placed all my units on the border of the city she stole from me all those turns ago, as I built my first aerodrome. At the time that district was being built, I was stockpiling as much money as I could that I first used to buy the 3 builders needed to work the aluminum, before using the rest to buy the bombers that needed that aluminum, as I was finally ready to enact my plans. And after the first test of wiping out her forces pillaging my economy was passed with flying colors, it was now time to take the fight to the Congo for the first time this game. Starting with the city that should have been mine, and as I watched it melt, I took pride in the fact that I was able to wipe out an 80 combat strength city in less than 2 turns. But as great as a success as that was, it was the core cities of her empire that were the real prize. The power base she used to fund her countless expeditions against me. But with all the rough terrain protecting her cities, it took my melee-based army a while to get there, which allowed her to continuously harass my units. This harassment was too damaging to overlook, and so I bought the second type of plane, the fighter, to eliminate her units. But eventually, one of the largest cities I'd ever seen had finally fallen under my control. But not for long. I needed to get the rest of her high population cities or risk losing this crown jewel in my empire. And so I split my army into 2 to speed up the process. And while this strategy meant that I suffered countless losses that otherwise were preventable, we limped to the finish line and take her 2 biggest cities. And with all these cities, all that power taken from out under her, the Congo is finished. And despite this offensive continuing for nothing more than the love of the game, back home my people were working on spacecraft and exploration as we won a science victory, despite the Congo's best efforts.